Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen, other pairs will be analyzed today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video, as I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, another boring week for me, no trades this week. I was mainly focused on Euro USD. We'll go through it in detail, but nothing quite fit the plan for any trade opportunities for myself. Have seen a bit of downside. Hopefully we can get some pullbacks next week. We'll discuss that in a moment, but of course, first things first, let's take a look at the DXY. And if you do want to skip ahead to a particular pair, feel free to use the timestamps below. But for the DXY, my bias was very bullish coming into the week, and that still remains the same. I'm still looking for a lot more upside. My higher time frame targets for the DXY do remain at 106, 400 and 107, 100. So of course that'll be the first target. Once we get there, or if we get there, then I'll be looking at this next high over here. But we've got a lot of bullish structure at play here on the DXY, some higher highs and higher lows, and I'm simply looking for that trend to continue for the next higher high and a retest of the resistance. I'm expecting a lot of liquidity above the highs there, so for me that's where price is likely to be drawn towards. On the 4H, we've got more of the same. Big impulse to the upside, pull back, another impulse, pull back this week, and looking like another impulse to the upside. So I'm expecting more of the same next week, as long as we don't break structure. So basically, as long as we can remain above this low here, don't break it, we can come back and respect it. But as long as we don't break it, I do think we have a lot more upside in store. So simply just looking for pullbacks this week, full price to continue. I do think there's a good chance we do get back to the high here, and then maybe next week or the week after we can look at 107, 100 up there. But in terms of trajectory, it's looking very, very bullish for the dollar. So let's get to Euro USD. So I said I was looking for some sells this week. My main area of interest was the area up here. I was also speaking about this level here as well. Pullback was okay, but looking in the hourly time frame, which is where I take majority of my entries, didn't really see any candlestick patterns that fit the plan. Nice wick rejection up there, but afterwards we were kind of just sideways, no momentum. Then we had some more sideways price action. By the time I woke up, price was kind of already bleeding to the downside, so there's no real entry signal for me, and we kind of rolled over quite sluggishly. So Euro USD price action wasn't great. Maybe some other guys caught this position here, but in terms of the way I trade, it didn't quite fit the plan, so stayed out the market. However, not too disappointed, because I still do think there's a lot of downside for Euro USD. Similar to the DXY, I'm expecting those big highs to be hit, and corresponding to that, Euro USD, I'm looking at these big lows to be hit. So Euro USD 1.06 100 and 1.04 500 are the two next big targets I have for Euro USD. So in my view, there's still a long way to go before we do hit major support. 200 pips, 200 pips to that low, and we still got about 75, 80 pips to that low there as well. So if I can find some opportunities between that, I'm a happy guy, as long as I can get some nice positions on. But I'm still expecting more downside. So the plan for next week is to be looking for a break and retest of this low. If we can get a sufficient break, looking for a retest to continue that momentum. Again, we've got some lower highs now. One over there, second over there, potentially a third, not quite confirmed yet because we haven't actually taken out the low, but this is looking like the lower high. If not, that's perfectly fine as well, because I'm still keeping an eye on this level here, as I mentioned from last week. Let's say we do form a double bottom and we do push up, I will be looking at my lower high respecting this area around 1.079. Again, looking for the same opportunity as last week, looking for that lower high to form and a continuation to the downside. I'm very, very bullish on dollar. So all the dollar pairs I talk about, I will just be focusing on ideas that favor dollar bullishness. And yeah, looking to trade in that direction. So Euro USD, I'm still happy with, looking for opportunities. Breaking me test of 1.06 800 and 1.079 is where my focus will be. But target for next week down at 1.06 100 and eventually 1.04 600 for Euro USD. Okay, so over to dollar yen. So dollar yen bullish bias. I'm looking for price to go and take out this wick high. We're very, very close to doing that, so I wouldn't be surprised if we open up the week bullish and do it even potentially before Monday. Wouldn't be surprised that Sunday evening. But essentially, we're looking for pullbacks. Again, with the yen pairs, the theme has been this bullish trend, monthly, weekly, daily, all the major time frames pointing up. So only looking at opportunities that favor that bias until proven otherwise, which we're still yet to see. So the next best area for me would be this local level of resistance on the 4 hour, which will hopefully be turned support if we can come back and retest that. But what I'm liking with dollar yen now is that we're starting to see some momentum, because recently we have been quite corrective. You can see these bullish legs here, not really seeing big commanding candles. You're kind of seeing slow, small candlesticks with some bearish candlesticks in there, wicks as well, corrective moves in general. So not really confident moves, but now we're starting to see some confidence, some momentum, some impulsive price action here. So this looks good to follow if we do see a pullback. And essentially all we're looking to do is try and catch that next higher low. If we look at the patterns of the market, higher low there, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, so on and so forth. So of course looking to try and catch that next one. I like this area, resistance, we broke through pretty aggressively, didn't see a retest of that area. So if we do come back down in the 4 hour, I do expect a retest and I do expect a bounce. And then yeah, we can target the high, depends where the high does form. So if you go and take out that area and pull back, then of course that will then become a nice area to target going forward. Or you can just trail stops and see how far this move can take you, because you know the yen pairs do have a mind of their own at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see another 200-300 pip move for them. But in terms of the opportunities, looking for buys, I like this level here at 158.250. So let's see if we can get a pullback, maybe in the low time frames as well. This area looks good. We might not see a pullback all the way to this level, so I will keep an eye on that small range there, maybe on the hourly or 30-minute time frame. But the level I'll be looking at will be this 158.250 level. So expecting more upside for dollar yen, new highs next week most likely. Let's see if we can get some pullbacks and some buying opportunities. Okay, so over to USD CAD. So USD CAD bullish bias. I still have for this one, again, looking for opportunities that do favor dollar strength. And looking at USD CAD, we do have somewhat of a bullish trend on our hands here, which I've been talking about. It's not the cleanest one in the world, but you can see we are pushing up, respecting this trend line pretty well. I'm looking for a push back into the high over here. So that is the plan I have for USD CAD. In terms of a good opportunity now, personally, I'm not going to be focused on USD CAD because price action for me is just a little bit too choppy. Euro USD, which we talked about earlier, had a bit more of a trend to it, whereas USD CAD is kind of just in a big consolidation. And typically in these conditions, I won't perform as well as I would do if it was trending. So I know these conditions aren't favorable for me, so I'll be focusing on the dollar pairs. But if you're looking at dollar CAD, I still think there's upside potential. In fact, as long as we remain above this trend line, I think there's a really high chance we do get back to the swing high there eventually. So opportunities aren't that bad on USD CAD. It's just conditions aren't great. So if you're looking to buy this one, I'll be looking at these two areas here. Support there, which gave us a really strong move to the upside. Potentially could come and retest that. We've got the trend line running through it as well. And support, which we're kind of holding on to at the moment as well. So we could see some buying opportunities early next week. But these two levels look pretty good. One at 1. Wrong way. One at 1.36800, we'll call it 850. And also one just below it, pretty much in the same area, but two different levels, so two different stop losses. And targets, back to the swing high makes a lot of sense here as well. You don't have to shoot for the stars and try and get a move back to the daily swing high, and move back to here or even lower than that. Depends what your risk profile is. If you're looking for 5-to-1s or 1-to-1s, it's up to you. In terms of locations, which makes sense based on the higher time frame direction, based on the higher time frame bias, based on the 4-hour bias as well. These are two really nice levels, so I'll definitely keep an eye on both of them. 1.36850 and also 1.36670. And yeah, I'm expecting a lot more upside for dollar CAD. If dollar is gonna be bullish, I do expect that to drag USD CAD to the upside. So that is the plan next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound, I'm looking at downside. We had a really big breakout a couple of weeks ago with this big gap. And I'm expecting more downside. I'm looking at the higher time frames, daily, weekly chart. There is some type of bearish trend on our hands here. Now, to be honest, Euro Pound is definitely not a pair which I'm looking to trade next week. There are other pairs that look a lot better. Euro Pound is historically quite a choppy back and forth pair. So unless the conditions are looking really, really good, I tend to not really trade it. But we are seeing some downside and some momentum. So this is definitely the better time to trade euro pound, if there is one. This is not a bad time to trade it, but we have broken through really big support on the daily chart, which I would be looking for a retest of for some more downside. As we can see, support once, twice, a third time, fourth, and briefly a fifth before big breakout. And we still do have this big gap in the market which hasn't been filled yet. So I do expect us to continue to move to the upside, go and fill that gap, retest that daily 4-hour level, then possibly see that next lower high. If I zoom out, you can see price has been forming these highs here, 1, 2, 3. Effectively, we're looking for the fourth at this 0.85 area, big psychological level as well. So kind of crushing 3 birds with 1 stone, filling the gap, retesting a big level, and of course testing that psychological level, printing that next lower high, and expecting continuation to the downside. So that would be the plan with euro pound. Of course, you don't necessarily have to look for a push back to the low there. We've got support here, maybe resistance here if we break out of it. So it'll be up to you to manage that position in terms of your targets and in terms of how you want to manage it, trading stop loss or partials, whatever. But in terms of a solid location for some shorts, 0.85 makes a lot of sense. And there's a good chance we could print another lower high there to continue that trend. So I'll keep an eye on that area, fill that gap, retest some structure, and see some downside. Higher time frames look bearish, so that's always a great confidence to have. So yeah, expecting more downside next week, but first a little bit more retracement is needed. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar is still within the range, and as I've been saying for the past 2 or 3 weeks, as long as we're in this range, I'm not interested to trade it at all, and that is still the case. However, I do like the pair because I do think a breakout is imminent, and when it does happen, I think there'll be some really nice opportunities. Typically, the longer the consolidation, the bigger the breakout, or the stronger the breakout. So I do think there's some tasty moves happening very soon, and I'm looking either for push back to the high there or push back to the low here, or even the low down here. I am favoring downside. As I said, I've been bullish on the dollar, so Aussie dollar shorts would be my preference. And again, if I zoom out, we do have some type of bearish trend here. We are seeing some signs that the trend is slowing down, but generally speaking, we are printing consistent lower highs here. So I do expect us to break to the downside out of this range. If we do break to the upside, then I'll still look for opportunities depending on the breakout, depending on the retest, but I will be looking for opportunities to take it back to the high there. But the move I'm favoring, because there's a lot of confidence behind it, is definitely a break to the downside, a retest of this area and some shorts, and a break and retest of this support level here, which will now become resistance. So yeah, for me, Aussie dollar looks really good. I actually like it, potentially just as much as Euro USD, even though this is ranging. But if we do see a clean breakout, some clean momentum, I think a retest will look solid, and risk to wall looks pretty good back to the low here, or even a push back to the low here will look fantastic as well. So I really like what I'm seeing for Aussie dollar. Like I said, I won't really be against taking some buys. I know it goes against my dollar bullish bias, but if it's a solid breakout, I'll still look to trade it. But yeah, I do anticipate some downside here. So keeping a close eye on 0.66, yeah, call it 0.66, and looking for some shorts all the way back down to 0.64 for next week. Okay, so over to NZD CAD. So NZD CAD, I am looking at downside. I do think we can see a bigger pullback. I'm looking at these major swing lows here and here. I do think we are probably going to form another one for price to push higher, or at least come back into an area where we could do that. I'm looking at a retest of some structure there. So in the meantime, I do think there's room to the downside for us. If I delete all this, we are back underneath this major resistance level. To me, this is like a big fake out of that high. So I do think we do have a lot of downside in store. So the opportunity I was talking about last week was if we can kind of clear this ascending channel here, break to the downside, and then potentially use this support level to our advantage as resistance for some shorts. We kind of have seen that for a bit of a break to the downside and a retest there. But as I was describing last week, I really want to see price really break through and then see a bigger pullback for the shorts. Really tell us that we're breaking structure, because we have seen some nice momentum, but it's been quite corrective. And typically this is not really the best break structure in the world. It's always best when we get big candlesticks breaking through highs or lows and do it impulsively. Those are normally the best break of structures. So I do want to see a bit more evidence that price is really getting ready to reverse, and then I will be looking at retest of this level, potentially even a retest of this low as well. Depends on how big the breakout is and how big a pullback it is, but generally speaking, looking for a retest of this low to form that next lower high. And some downside in terms of targets, we can be looking at the lows here on the left to target even the high here, which I said is a good chance for some buys. That could make up for a really nice target as well if you want to be a bit more aggressive. But in terms of the direction, looking at downsides, price action starting to look good. We're seeing evidence that we're breaking structure. Just need to see a bit more momentum, looking for the next low high and trying to catch some shorts to the downside. So keep an eye on some downside next week for NZD CAD. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So pound NZD, I'm still looking for buys, but it's definitely taking its sweet time. We've been trapped in this descending channel for a while now. Price being so corrective, and again, typically in these descending channels, you do expect price to break to the upside. That's typically what happens. We're trying to sell off, but we're finding it so hard to do so. Eventually, you do see the buyers kind of reverse price. So I'm looking for that big move to the upside for pound NZD. And again, I've explained the reasons why a few times now on the higher time frames why I'm looking for it. We've got low down there, high, higher low, higher high. Now I'm trying to look for that next higher low for a push back to resistance. So for me, I'm anticipating another higher low forming, and then I'm looking to follow that back to the high. So the plan is to wait for that break of structure, and then hopefully I can use that to my advantage by looking for some pullbacks after that, retest of the high. Again, this is pretty much NZD CAD but inverted, looking for price to break out the channel and then look for the retest of the recent low, but in this case the recent high, to then take some buys. Of course, in this case we still got a long way to go to get that break of structure, but again, there's a few pairs I'm looking at next week, so I'm happy to wait. And of course, I don't want to rush anything and take a poor setup. If it's going to take a while, it's going to take a while. But in terms of the opportunity, the risk to reward looks pretty good. If we can get a nice buy in the break and retest of a area down here, and potentially ride it back to the high, it's definitely worth the wait. So we'll keep an eye on pound NZD. There's still a lot of upside potential, a lot of confidence behind it, definitely on the higher time frames as well. And the fact is, it was so corrective. Haven't really seen any convincing bearish momentum here, so that does speak to me in terms of that we're likely to break high at some point. Just need to wait for it, and then we'll see what opportunities we can find after. But really looking for a breaking test of the high here around 2.085 to take it back to the swing high at 2.12 next week. Okay, so over to CAD Yen. So another yen pair which is absolutely exploding to the upside. We've got the wick high over here, which looks like price is gunning for. We've seen a bunch of yen pairs go and take out that corresponding wick on their charts, and I think a few yen pairs are very close to doing that now. Euro yen, CAD yen, dollar yen are very close to doing that. So I think next week we probably will see price take out that high. And of course, given the conditions of the market on the higher time frames, monthly, weekly, daily, 4 hour, even lower, still being bullish, we're still looking for buying opportunities. I know the market is overstretched, and we might be seeing some downside soon, but again, that's nothing I'm going to anticipate. Try and sell a very bullish market, or try and buy a very bearish market is always going to be very difficult to do, because the chances are we do head higher or we do head lower. So I'm looking for pullbacks for this one. I do like a retest of the high here at 115.300 to take it back to the upside. A really good situation would be if, let's say, we kind of topple out over here somewhere, or maybe slightly higher up, and then we go through a nice corrective pullback. That will be a really nice buy, because we haven't taken out the high yet, and that's most likely what price is looking to do. So if we do pull back before we take out the high, then chances of a successful pullback is really high. If we do take the high and pull back, the chance of a good pullback is still high as well, but not as such, because price has already done its job, basically taking out liquidity above the high. So if you do pull back, really good opportunity. Same with dollar yen as well. But even if we push up, I would still look for opportunities because the trend is that strong. And of course, similar to dollar yen as well, I'll keep an eye on this area, because there is a situation where we might not see a big enough pullback to retest this level here at 115.500. We might just see a bit of upside, retest that brief consolidation, and then be on our way. So I would keep an eye on that area, but my preferred level would definitely be this area here. It's a big strong level, big strong move to the downside. Would expect that to act as support, especially with a strong break like that and no prior retest as well. So Keep an eye on 115,500. If the lower time frames look good, potentially this area around 116,250. But looking for more upside, and I do think there's a good chance we do take out that wick high at 117,300 next week. Okay, so over to pound USD. So pound USD bearish bias for this one as well. Like I said, very bullish on dollar. So pretty much all the dollar crosses, I'm looking for opportunities that favor more dollar strength, and looking at the price action as well, the technical analysis for pound USD, it's a pretty bearish situation as well. We've got a ranging market. We've been ranging since the beginning of the year. We've been flirting with the idea of breakouts, but nothing really concrete just yet. There's a big breakout here, but that was very anticlimactic. We came back inside the range not too long after. A bit of a sharp fake out here as well, came straight back in the range, and we kind of tested the high there and came straight back down as well. So I'm looking for a push back down to the low of the range around 1.25300. So that's where I'm expecting price to end up next for pound USD, and all I'm looking at is pullbacks to that area. We do have this lovely support level here, which I was talking about last week, and it looks like we are breaking through it. I would like to see this to be a little bit stronger or clear it by a little bit further before I would look further distance before looking for a retest, but that's me being a bit picky. But essentially it does look good now for pound USD, and we formed this big high up there. We broke structure, taking out this low. Looks like the market is now printing some nice bearish structure for us. So the idea with pound USD, as long as we don't take out the high here, we're looking for a lower high, perhaps a retest of this structure here, support time resistance, to find that next lower high and ride that momentum to the low of the range at around 1.253. So that's the idea behind pound USD. We simply rejected the high of the range, so now we're looking for price to come into the low of the range, and there's a lot of other confluence that play into that. But in terms of the technicals, it does look good. Now I do prefer Euro USD because it's a bit more trending. Pound USD was still trading from the range, so it's not the best opportunity. But again, what can you do when the price action has been like this all year? You know, it's not always going to be fantastic. So pound USD looking at a retest of 1.26891, expecting a push back down to 1.253 next week. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So pound CAD, this one almost set up for me this week. I was looking for buys. I said I really like this level of resistance here on the daily chart. Big level resistance, 1, 2 really big rejections, 3 there as well as support. And again, the market has been really bullish. We can see overall the trend has been up. So I said this week, if we do come back into this level, I will be looking for a bounce, trying to catch that next high low for a move to the upside. Unfortunately, we kind of broke through the level and started retesting it as resistance. So I was hoping that these wicks here would be on top of the level rather than underneath. Didn't quite set up how I wanted it to. So it looks like we are breaking through the zone, but we still do have a really nice level just underneath us here, which actually I was looking for a retest of when we originally had this breakout. Never really saw it happen. Maybe we did in the low time frames over here, but I'm always looking for that bigger breakout and that bigger pullback. Didn't quite see that happen, but now with all this momentum here, it looks like we might be seeing a retest of this level. So I'll definitely be keeping a close eye of 1.722 for next week. Hopefully we see a bit more downside to get there. And again, looking for the same thing. Now, I won't be looking for a push all the way back to the swing high. I think that's a bit too optimistic with pound CAD, especially because this bearish leg has been pretty impulsive. So it might be the start of potentially a big counter trend move. But I do think it's a good enough level to get a decent bounce of. And maybe we do form a lower high, and maybe we do turn around at some point, but enough to get some decent pips out of the market. So unless we come back above this level here at 1.732, then I'll keep an eye for some buys. But right now we're trading pretty comfortably underneath it, and kind of respecting as resistance to a degree. So not really interested in that level anymore, but I do like this level just below us, and looking for a bounce to the upside. In terms of targets, I think this area makes a lot of sense, or even this area here as well. I think that makes sense. I'll be trading my stop loss, so I'll just be seeing how far I can take it. But in terms of people looking at solid take profits, I would say this area makes a lot of sense, or this level here, depending how aggressive you want to be. But that's what I'm looking at for pound CAD. Still looking at buying opportunities, looking at 1.722 higher time frames, still respecting these higher lows. So that's the direction I'll be looking to trade in. So yeah, keep an eye on 1.722 for some buys for next week. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen, now the yen pair looking very, very strong, breaking to the upside. And again, it's the same theme. We're still looking for more upside next week. We're still breaking highs here, producing higher lows. Now with pound yen, I'm not as big a fan as I am with some other yen pairs, because this one's still a little bit corrective. If you look at dollar yen and CAD yen, which we just had a look at, we're seeing a little bit more strength in these bullish moves here, or at least recently, and a bit more conviction to the upside. So I'd rather look to follow those moves than pound yen. And another big reason as well is that pound yen has already taken out the wick high from a long time ago as well. So we've already taken out big liquidity. Price is still pushing higher, of course, but dollar yen, CAD yen still do have reasons to head higher, and we've seen cleaner moves as well. So I'd rather focus my attention on those two yen pairs than pound yen. But I do respect the price action here. Really comfortable uptrend here with this trend line 1, 2, 3, and we're leaving behind some solid resistance as well, which will be turn support as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we push up a little bit, pull back down, retest some area confluence, and push back up again and see that next high low. That has been the theme of pound yen for a while now, since the start of 2024. I mean, since the start of 2021, really, we've been pushing up, or 2020. So price has been very, very bullish. So I do expect a lot more upside as long as we respect structure. And if you're looking to trade pound yen next week, I'll be looking at some pullbacks, retest around 200.6, and trying to take that to the upside. If we form a high here, let's say, then that of course will become a nice target to have, or maybe trail stops, just see how far we can push this one. But in terms of location, I like the confluence here, trying to catch that next high low to see some more highs next week. Okay, so next up we've got gold. So gold, big move to the upside, followed by a big move to the downside. And this is kind of what I was talking about last week. I said this is an area which keep a close eye on, because this could be a nice place for shorts. Now, I wasn't really interested in shorting gold. To be honest, I'm not really interested in trading gold. My intention is more for silver. But this would be in a nice place to short. Of course, in hindsight, we can see lovely move to the downside. But last week I was talking about potentially an up move into this area, because this was a massive sell-off, and because this has been so corrective, this to me looks like a pullback of that move. So that's why I've been looking at some downside continuation. Now, do I expect us to potentially sell off a cliff and keep going? I'm not too sure about that. I'm not too sure about long term. I'm still very bullish on gold, and I'm still looking for us to come back to the highs around 22,400, 2440, sorry. I don't know where I get 22,400 from. 2440, 2450. I still expect us to get there eventually, but how price is looking like, it looks like it's formed some lower highs here, which is definitely nothing to ignore. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see another move back to support, and then potentially if you can look at some strong rejections there, that could then be a nice time to buy. If you throw some wicks, take out that lower a little bit, respect this area, that could be a nice time to position some longs to take advantage of a move up. But in terms of finding a good swing trade, that's what I'll be looking for. Right now, this to me looks price has had its impulse. It's now had its correction and it's trying to impulse again. Maybe we do form a higher low here and price starts to push up again. If that's the case, then I want price to start breaking the highs here. Break this high, even better, break this high, and then I'll be on board with the pullbacks and then some longs. I wouldn't be trying to anticipate some buys here, because we've seen some really strong evidence here. One drop there, second drop there, third drop there, that the sellers aren't really backing off just yet. So trying to find a higher low here might be good for the moment, maybe good for a session or for a day, but the chances are we do continue to spill over. If I'm wrong and price shoots up, takes out highs here, then yeah, I'll be on the next pullback, because at that point we've taken out big structure here. This is where a lot of momentum came from. If we do invalidate those highs, that's a big sign to me that, okay, gold is going to probably push back to the high there. So the pullback after that will make a lot of sense to take some buys, maybe on a retest of that high. So that would be the best case scenario for buys for gold if we were to push up, break structure. But at the point in time, I don't really see us doing that. I see us kind of spilling over back to the low here. So we'll see what we can do at around 2280, which is where I've been calling for price to get to for a while now, to look for some buys. And then we can see what price does there and take it up. Now, will we get a swing back to the high? Potentially, but I wouldn't really bet on it. I think it's more of a reaction trade rather than a big swing trade, just because gold isn't moving that well right now. So yeah, if you do get a big break of shock to the upside, we're looking at pullbacks and be a retest of 23.68, but more likely we'll probably see a push back to the low here around 22.80. We'll see what price does, but yeah, looking for a bounce to the upside. So that is how I'm viewing gold going into next week. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has been slowly kind of carrying out my bias from last week, which is we've failed the highs here, so now I'm expecting price to move back down to the bottom end of the descending channel. We've had a really nice impulsive move. I'm looking at this as a big correction of that move for a big impulse at some stage in time. But because we've just had a failure at that attempt to break out higher, I do think there's a great chance we do move back to the low end of the channel to potentially try and have that bullish swing again and try and rally. So I'm looking at Bitcoin falling back to around 58, 57, 56K. In and around this area here is my next kind of major target for this one. In terms of opportunities, we're kind of in the middle of the descending channel, so it's not really the best place to get involved and position yourself long or short really. But I do like this support level up here, term resistance. That could be a neat and tidy place for short if you're really eager to trade Bitcoin, looking for a retest of that area, stop loss above the high, and then you're trying to capitalize on a swing back to the low end of the channel. And then maybe from here we can discuss some buys to take it back up again. But essentially, Bitcoin is kind of stuck in a consolidation. It's ranging, but in my view, it's kind of just taking a pause of this bullish move and building up and get ready for that bigger breakout. But first, we're probably going to see a move down first, judging on the fact that we failed to break out the high. So Bitcoin still looking around 58, 57, 56K. Maybe some sales around 67K, and the retest of that level look good. And then we can discuss some buys when we get there. Okay, so now we've got NZD USD, which is our bonus pair for this week. So I like NZD USD a lot. It's very similar to Aussie dollar, and I'm kind of looking at both of them in the same light. Again, if I expand to the higher time frames, you can see NZD USD has been pretty consistent with all these lower highs as well on the daily chart. Equally, Aussie dollar has been doing the same thing as well. So I do think we're in that area where, again, we potentially could be forming that next lower high in this sequence and another move back down to these lows here. So that is the idea, the swing I have in mind. And again, given my bullish bias on the dollar, potentially looking at a big dollar swing to the upside, it makes a lot of sense that NZD USD could be doing the same thing, but in the opposite direction, of course. At the moment in time, we've got kind of a big range here. I'm not super excited about this range. I haven't looked to trade inside of that area. I'm waiting for the breakout, but that is what I'm excited for. Same thing for Aussie dollar, waiting for the breakout. This one looks like it's getting ready for it. Hopefully we see it happen early next week. And then we can be looking at some pullbacks, retest this area. Again, very similar situation as with Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar's got a nice level of support we've been bouncing on for a few weeks now. Same thing with New Zealand dollar, been bouncing on this area a few times. So if we do see a nice strong break to the downside, this of course will become resistance and a great place for a short if we can see a pullback into that area. And like Aussie dollar, the risk reward looks pretty good, for potentially a swing back to the lows here. Again, it's up to you how far you want to push the trade, but I'm just letting you know we do have that capability to see that swing. It makes sense looking at the higher time frames. If we're going to continue these bearish moves, there's a good chance we'll continue back to the low there. So there's reason behind that move, there's logic behind that move, and confluence as well. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from New Zealand dollar. It's finding a really hard time to try and continue this bullish trend. Of course, it could do that. It could break to the upside. Range is 50-50. We could break up, could break down, but judging on the higher time frames, it looks like we have a good shot of seeing some downside. And given that dollar sentiment, that should help us out. So waiting for a break lower. We'll see what we can do on the retest of 0.60900 and looking for some shorts all the way back down to 0.58836 for next week. And that, guys, does bring us to the end of the analysis. If you have found it useful, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Drop a comment down below your favorite pair you're looking at for next week. I'm interested to find out. But guys, have a fantastic day, have a fantastic weekend. I'll catch you all in the next one.